Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Finya and today I want to talk about fantasy books because now, at least in Germany, the days are getting shorter. It's like dark the whole day. So that puts me in the mood to read fantasy because in winter and like autumn, I really want to escape and I want to have something fantastical. So we're going to talk about some fantasy books I'm dying to read. Most of these are like staples in the fantasy genre, so a lot of you might have already read them. Some of them maybe not. And yes, I'm gonna walk you through it. First up is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Two magicians, bound by a long-standing rivalry, train their prodigies to compete in a magical circus that only appears at night, unaware that only one can survive. And the tropes are star-crossed lovers, magical competition, slow-burn romance, found family, forbidden love, and whimsical fantasy. If that doesn't sound cozy, and I love it. I love how it sounds. I love, the enemies to lovers and like forbidden love, and you have to overcome challenges and burdens like in a plot way, but also in the romance way. And most people who love fantasy have read this book, I feel like, and loved it. So I think for me, like the end of the year will be just plowing through those kind of fantasy books that just everyone seems to like and you can't do anything wrong with it. So yes, The Night Circus is the first one that I'm, dying to read. Next up is Bride by Ellie Hazelwood, and this is somehow out of character for Ellie Hazelwood. I kind of know her for like her STEM romances, so Love on the Brain, The Love Hypothesis, etc. And this is a vampire slash werewolf romance, I guess. It sounds so weird to me that this author would write this. And I've heard many different opinions on it. But for example, the book Leo said it was a bit cringy, but in a way that Ellie Hazelwood doesn't take it too seriously. So it's kind of actually fun to read it. And this is kind of what I'm expecting from it, like a cute, fast-paced story that is kind of a bit, why would you write that, but also kind of fun. The tropes are enemies to lovers, paranormal romance, forbidden love, forced proximity, opposites attract, supernatural world building. So everything I kind of enjoy in a romantasy. And then we have The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This is also a new release, or like newer release. As you might know, I love Six of Crows, I love King of Scars, and like the whole Grisha-verse. I did a whole video on that if you want to watch that. But I have never read anything apart from this universe from her. For example, she wrote those Dark Academia book, like Ninth House. I have not yet read that, but now she came out with another fantasy book. Set in the Spanish Golden Age, this historical fantasy follows Lucia Cortado, a scullery maid with secret magical abilities who is thrust into political intrigue and court life when her powers are discovered. The tropes are hidden magic, rags to riches, political intrigue, historical fantasy, forbidden knowledge, mystical mentor. I haven't yet read a lot of historical fantasy. I think like the only things that I will count into that are Cassandra Clare's book, for example, The Infernal Device and stuff like that, so in the beginning of the 20th century. But I have not read a lot of historical fantasy that I can think of, at least. And the book is even more interesting to me because, like I've said before in a video, I feel like Leigh Bardugo's writing got better and better and better with each book she wrote. So I really enjoyed her later works much more than her first books, for example, the Shadow and Bone trilogy. So I'm really hyped to read this because, as I said a million times, I love Six of Crows and stuff like that, but to see another fantasy come from her feels very special to me, and I have not read it yet, so I'm really looking forward to that. Next up is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and about this book I really don't know nothing except that it's fantasy and it's enemies to lovers, so two things that I'm always craving. So let's see what it's actually about. Poppy, a young maiden isolated by her society's strict rules, begins to question her own purpose when she meets a god who challenges everything she knows. The tropes are forbidden love, enemies to lovers, chosen one, hidden identity, court intrigue, high fantasy romance. This description really didn't tell me anything. Let's see what it says on Goodreads. Okay, this description is so long, I'm sorry. But somehow she's a maiden and she suddenly has this duty and the whole kingdom kind of relies on her to do something. I don't really know. And then there's this god who's probably going to be the love interest. I don't know. I don't really care. I just want fantasy and romance. And I do think that this is the book for me. It has a 4.2 rating, so people seem to really enjoy it. So yeah, I would definitely get into that. Next up is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. And this I know a little bit about. So it's set in the 1920s in Shanghai. So it's also historical fantasy. And it's a Romeo and Juliet retelling, which sounds also very interesting. And it's, of course, enemies to lovers. It's kind of, this rivalry, I think, between two gangs, I feel like. And yes, then this monster, something like that, appears. And obviously they have to save the world. Or just Shanghai, I don't know. But what really intrigues me about it is that it doesn't take place in some world that is fictional or just the US, because I feel like most fantasy that actually is modern fantasy or just plays in the real world, it's usually set in America or like England, which is nice, of course. I don't have anything against that, but it's kind of interesting to have this place that I've never been to and that I just know way less about. So yeah, that's really interesting. And I feel like this book is a bit more complicated. Like that's what I've heard, that it's a bit, a deeper dive and it's not super fast paced or you can just read over it, because it does take some brain capacity. This is the only thing I know about. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's super fast paced and easy, but this is what I've heard about it. And yes, I'm really hyped for that as well, because I've heard so many things about it. Like the title, These Violent Delights, is just so ingrained in my brain because I've just heard it so often. And also I do think that it comes from a Shakespeare quote. I definitely read a Shakespeare play once where I found the words "these violent delights" somewhere in there, and I was like, wait, isn't that a book? So yes, I see you, Chloe Gong. Now we have Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. But this is obviously about pirates. I think it's about a pirate princess that on purpose gets captured by this enemy crew, kind of, to retrieve a treasure, something like this. And then obviously we have some romance. Someone on that crew is then, she falls in love with him. First of all, I have not read a lot of pirate fantasies in my life, or just general stories about pirates, which I don't know why, because I do enjoy me a good pirate story. I also do think that there should be more pirate movies like Pirates of the Caribbean. Like there should be more coming out. I don't know, it seems like a good decision to do. People would like that, but whatever, we're talking about books. I mean, I love Nikolai in the Grishaverse, and recently I've read The Assassin and the Pirate Lord, which is a Throne of Glass novella by Sarah J. Maas, which is about a pirate bay, and I really enjoyed that story. So I'm kind of craving something piratey right now. And obviously that mixed with romance, what can go wrong? Why not? It seems like a good mixture in my head to have like pirates and romance in one book. So I'm really glad that exists. So yes, I'm definitely gonna dive into that maybe in the winter time, maybe like around New Year's, like just start off the year with some pirates. I don't know, that seems good to me. And then we have The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. And this was recommended to me by a viewer who left a comment that I would really enjoy that, because it has epic fantasy, it has dragons, and that is basically all I know about it. So let's see. An epic fantasy about a divided world on the brink of war, where dragons, queens, and ancient prophecies collide as women from different backgrounds unite to fight a dark force. The tropes are epic fantasy, dragon riders, sapphic romance, prophecy, multiple POVs, complex world building. This book is long. This is basically all I know about epic fantasies, dragon, and that it's hell long. And it seems to be also very complex. It does not seem to be, your short little romantasy book that you can just, plow through in like one day. This seems to be huge, This is not that high on the list. It is kind of high on the list because this one person commented and said I would like it, and I trust that person with my heart. So I'm definitely gonna read it sometime soon, but I do think that it would start off with some cozier, quicker reads. But yes, this has been on my list for like ages. So, and I've heard so many great things about it. And the main negative comments I heard about it, that it's too long. I enjoy long books, but I do get why they sometimes put you in a slump. But yeah, I would definitely at some point get to it, and yes, rather sooner than later. Next up is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. This, it's been a dark academia sensation. And yes, it's by Olivia Blake, and I've read Alone with You in the Ether by and this was beautiful. Like, the characters were so beautifully written. I definitely have a video up where I talk about it more. You can check that out, but I've not read any fantasy by her. So it's basically about 6 characters that are magicians, and they compete in this secret competition where they're fighting about like 5 spots or something like that, and you know, for some secret mission. That's what I know about, and I know that there are very well-written characters that you can really picture in your head. You know, they're very morally gray, and you have betrayal and you have connections between them. And it kind of reminds me of like the premise of like Six of Crows, like those 6 different characters that somehow work well together. I don't know if that's the case in this book, but that's kind of what it reminds me of. So I'm kind of intrigued, you know, and going off this feeling that it's similar, that it's maybe similar to Six of Crows. I'm really intrigued to read it. I'm really hyped. I feel like everyone and their grandma has read this book, so I kind of feel left out. It's like not reading Fourth Wing when everyone has read it, you know? So that's kind of that for me. Yes, I definitely want to get into it very soon. And the last on my list is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I don't really know a lot about this book other than that it has really beautiful covers. It has those rose-colored pink, I don't know, it's just beautiful colors, and it's very whimsical and like magical and fairy tale like. So let me read a little bit. Evangeline makes a desperate deal with the Prince of Hearts to win back her lost love, only to find herself entangled in magical bargains and dangerous schemes. The tropes are deals with the devil, star-crossed lovers, cursed romance, fairy tale fantasy, untrustworthy ally, whimsical setting. Okay, this untrustworthy ally is like so spoilering. I really hope that it does not happen in this book, because if that just spoiled me that there will be like a friend of the main character that will be evil in the end, like this will spoil so much for me. I will be now suspicious of like every character in this book that I feel like is good. So maybe I would just put off reading this until I've forgotten about it so I can actually enjoy it. I don't know why it said that, but yeah, this seems very young adulty. It seems like something I would have enjoyed at like 13 or 14, and to be fair, all of these books are that. My guilty pleasure is Romantasy for the pure fact that this is what I read when I was 13 or 14, and that is based on Twilight and City of Bones and Divergent. I still read it and I'm not ashamed. You know, I'm not even guilty about this pleasure. It's just pure pleasure, let's just say that. But yes, this was the end of my list. Please comment if you have like similar recommendations for me, if there are like other romantasy vibey books that are very magical and fast-paced and like, you know, something to giggle along with. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like if you want to. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!